story that must be told. Here's a little story that must be told. Here's a little story. Here's a little story.
My name is James Croone. I'm from the group the Emerald Street Boys. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska, but I basically just raised here all my life, so I just say Seattle. And my rap name then was Captain Crunch. Yep, so that's who I am. I just came up with the name Captain Crunch because I just like that name. It wasn't because of the cereal like most people think it is. The Emerald Street Boys, we're a rap group. We actually started as the Terrible Two, me and Eddie Wells. We're the Terrible Two rap group, early 81 is when we first started. And then we decided, me and Ed, that, hey, you know, it'd be great to make this a trio group. And then we had Robert Jamerson, who's the other Emerald Street Boy, to join the group. And we came up with the name Emerald Street Boys. We wanted to be named after our city, which is the Emerald City. And we said, okay, Emerald City is good, but we don't want to be the Emerald City Boys. We said, let's have it more connected to our community, to the street. And so the street is what brought in the middle name, the Emerald Street Boys. And so from that time on, that's when we were birthed into the Emerald Street Boys. So when I first met Ed, though, it's amazing how we met. He was a rapper and a dancer. Edward Wells is his name. Then he changed his name to Sugar Bear because his mom and his whole family has always called him that since he was a kid. They called him Bear. So that's how we came up with the actual names of Sugar Bear, and then, of course, me, Captain Crunch. And then when Rob came into the group, his name was Robert Jamerson, so his name became Sweet J. Ed was my best friend. I'm gonna do this without choking up. He was my best friend. His home was like my second home. From day one when we met, we just clicked. We hung out every day. I was at his house. His mom, Mrs. Wells, Carol Wells, was like my second mom. So me and him just automatically clicked from that time on. I think about him all the time, especially whenever Emerald Street Boys come up, because he was actually the main guy of the group. He was the one that actually was the main catalyst of that group and making it as strong as it was. He was the one that we kind of looked to, was like, man, Ed is phenomenal, you know. So the passing of Ed was it was troubling for me. It was really tough. Even today, anytime I hear about Ed or I see Miss Wells, it's tough. It's tough still. Yeah. So when we first started rapping, we have to keep in mind at that time there was nobody on TV doing it. There was no shows. There were none of those things. We didn't have a model to look at and say, oh, okay, that's what you do. Like back then, you're looking at like the Temptations and all these other different groups. So when we do our dance choreography and when we did rap, we had to kind of build what that looks like. And we wanted to be very artful in how we did things. The way that we would do our raps, we would have a tape recorder. We would set it there. And then what we would do is we would sit around it like this, and each one would take their turns doing it. So if you messed up, you had to start over again. So you had to rewind it all the way back. At this time, not very many people had turntables, but Ed's dad had bought him 2 Techniques. We would sing off the B-sides of songs, and Ed was a DJ, so he would go to a store in the Roosevelt area, and he would find these records, I don't know, from Enjoy, groups like Count Cool Out, the Cold Crush Brothers, there were groups like Funky 4 Plus One More. All of them had B-sides. So we would play that in the background, and we're sitting around the tape recording. You had to sit close enough because the voices had to all match and sync. That was how we would put raps together. We'd make tapes. So when we started doing the music, it all kind of came to play to where we said, okay, this got to be on point. I mean, we would have to do it over and over until it's rehearsed the right way. The step has to be a certain way, and so forth. You know, and Rob added as well because Rob had a really good voice, and he would do a lot of melody. When melodies, he would write the melody parts because he was really good at the singing. We were like brothers. That's what we were. We hung around with each other all the time. It was just us three, and that's how we eventually met. Nasty Ness, and then he wanted us to do things on his show. We did have the first album out of Seattle. We did in 81 also. The Christmas rap, and the B-side was The Move. You got to understand, back then, there was no way I ever thought that we would be looked at as like a lot of the rappers now, like, oh man, you guys are legends. You guys are, you know, let's take a picture. You were the first, and you know, we never thought that back then. We thought we were just young kids doing something. Our first show was here at the Washington Hall. I was 16 years old when we did that, you know, so Treacherous 3 was the one that we were really fond of doing because they were our idols. They came over to Ed's house. We hung out with the Treacherous 3. And our big performances, I'm going to tell you, our first one was always our biggest, and it was here. It was here at the Washington Hall. We did a show here that was we went all out when we did. We had our steps, we had our rap, everything was just to the nine. It was our best. I have to say we had a great time doing that. We actually did it twice here. Second time we came back to the Washington Hall, we also had the Emerald Street Girls. So we had an Emerald Street Girls group, and Silver Chain Gang was also on that with us. Another one that stood out to us the most that we got raving reviews for, and they actually said that we did actually better than the group that we opened up for, was the one we did with the Treacherous Three. And I'm like, those are our idols, But they really said that, we really kind of outshined them in that particular. That was at the Seattle Center. That was fun. We were young, and we did a lot of them in like taverns when we first started. But because we were underage, it was amazing because we had to stay in the back, and we'd come out and perform, but then you had to go right back to the back because it's a bar there. So we did a lot of those. But what really got us on the map, Darcel, who's a friend of the family, her name was Darcel Hayes. She worked for the bus company, and they wanted us to come and perform at the Armory. And when we went down there happened to be somebody from the Rocket that was there, and that was the first time that we were actually put out there. And then that's when, from then on, it just elevated. So everything just started kind of just morphing into this phenomenal thing, that we never would expect, So out of those shows, the Black Festival, of course, is always the biggest ones because that was the Black Festival. Right in the middle of Central District, Junkins Park. We went down there. We performed there twice. It was always amazing because we would be like at night when they know that we're going to come on and just seeing all the people rush all the way from the back up to the stage to see. So, and when you're kids, you're really excited, like, oh, this is cool, I think all of our shows were probably our biggest, but our biggest, I have to say, is our first one. And that was at the Washington Hall. So that's why I have such a big bond here, when I pass by. It's like, yeah, that was the spot. 79, when it first came out, when I heard Rapper's Delight, I was astounded. When I first heard it, of course, first thing I did is, oh man, I started writing down the whole thing because I wanted to, to know it, to go along with it. The long version, the short version. I think a lot of people at that time wanted to rap, but they were only rapping what they heard. Nobody thought rap was going to be that big, When they first heard Sugar Hill, you just thought, is there some DJs just going back and forth, just. As time went on, I started trying to do my own raps and do little things. It was probably corny back then. To be a unique rap group, you have to be much different. You can't sound like the other person. Otherwise, you don't need the other person. You can just do it yourself. So we had to make sure that we had different, in our personalities, had to be different. Ed was more of the ladies' man type of guy. Mine was more of the street person. Right, and I did because that's what I did. I used to hang out in the streets back then, with my buddies, just doing crazy stuff. And Rob was more or less. He was smooth, but his voice was more, it was deeper. So everybody had their own different, even the way we would dress. Our personalities was in our dress. It was in the way that we rapped. And that's what really helped it because you can see it, you can hear it and say, okay, yeah, I can kind of figure out who this guy is. We go to Goodwill. That's where we get our stuff. We like the wingtips with the, how you have the wingtips that are like the black and white. Well, you couldn't find them that way. So I remember one time what we had to do. I'm giving you my my behind the scenes of how we did our shoes. We would go get model paint because Ed wanted some red ones. Rob wanted a different color. And we would have to sit and paint the shoes, like the white in the area. Because if they were just black wingtips, we had to paint in there to kind of, So it might not have been a good paint job, but if you're on stage, everybody's like, oh, those are cool. But if you got up close to them, you'd be like, oh. First show at the Black Festival, we had it made. I had this white trench that was made with the gold buttons, and Ed had a blue silk suit made. Rob had on this vest that was, but she made the stuff for us. So we thought we made the big time. We're getting this stuff made. Bunny is what we called her, and she designed it and made it for us. So we always kind of want to be like entertainers. We rap, but we still want it to come off as when they see you, it's like, wow, you want that flash. Even in the rap, you wanted the visual of what people were seeing. So that's what intrigued me the most was how artful, how skillful can you be in doing, how fast can you go, how slow can you go, and still come across in a way that's going to be so effective that people say, wow, that's amazing. There were so many that were with us in that time that, for our shows and things we did. Silver Chain Gang, the Emerald Street Girls, of course, Mix-a-Lot, everybody knows Mix-a-Lot. West Coast Funk Brigade. There were a lot of other different groups, Jam Delight, 3D, and Frostmaster Chill, and all the different Sir Love. There were so many of them, so I can go on and on. Sneeko Productions was our manager. Steve Sneed and Rico Bemery was our manager, and Ed's mom. She was part of that group. It was 3 of them. And I miss how it was growing up. Then you're talking about a time of house parties. We used to walk to house parties to 2 or 3 a night, walk to them at night. You would go to parties, not even know whose house it is, but you just come on in. Everybody's just partying. That now, that's unheard of. It wasn't violent. You know, you get into a fight with somebody one day, the next day it's your best friend, but you're both alive. Back then, rap wasn't, we didn't swear or anything. We just talked about stuff we didn't have but thought we had, or just, you know what I mean? So rap wasn't a thing to where it was any conscious rap, or there's no gangster stuff or anything like that. You're just kind of rapping about stuff, about how great you are, even though you're not really doing all the things you say you're doing, just like Rappers Delight. So it was fun to be creative and talking about a lot of things through rap, and then coming up with ideas like, okay, what's this rap going to be called? This one's going to be called The Move. This one's going to be called Shake Your Pants and Dance. We did a lot of rap. We did a lot of party type raps, you know, because we like to get people, you know, up and riled up, and then you had to have the party track in the back, you know. In fact, our party tracks were really just us, and we just run them on tracks, and we had to get really high voices like, hey, you know, does that sound like there's girls in the background or different ones? So it was fun. It was fun, you know, doing all that kind of stuff, you know, screaming out our names, you know. So around the time of NWA and that whole, and the influx of a lot of California people migrating to Seattle, it kind of shifted that when the drug scene came. Seattle changed. Now we're moving into gangster rap. Now we're using profanity in our song. Back then we didn't use profanity. So when that came on the scene, it's like, oh, that seems cool. So now they started just following the trends. But prior to that, everybody was just, where's the next place? Seattle Center. We're all going there on Easter. We're all going down to Seward Park. There were always central places in Seattle that people would go to. There were festivals, black festivals, Bumper Shoot. Those places used to be packed back in those days. I mean, everybody knew that's just where we go. You know, back then it was safe everywhere. If anytime you can go to house parties 5 and 6 at night, and you're just going up into somebody's house and they're not minding, hey, yeah, we're just having a party, everybody. I mean, that's pretty safe. Whereas now it'd be unheard of. Hip hop culture, as I said before, it was more fun. It was creative. You were very creative. As time went on, and as the culture started to change, people were starting to adapt to what they saw. Then what it turned into is it all sounded the same. How much more can you talk about drugs and violence and swearing and calling women out there? I mean, you can only do that so much. And now all you have is swag. I've seen people personally that I don't think they're very good rappers, but their swag is what's carrying them. Kendrick Lamar, he's my favorite. He has a message. That's the thing. He has a message, and I hear that message that he has. It's a good feeling. It's like, man, that's nice. That's nice. And that's why I like Kendrick Lamar so good. And that's probably why he's one of the best ones out there. And he doesn't have all the stuff. You know what I mean? He's not wearing he doesn't need all of that. Why? I think a lot of them do it to compensate for the fact that they don't really have a message. Hip hop is its own culture. Hip hop's not a black thing. Hip hop is its own culture. You have white kids, Spanish kids, Asian kids, everybody. It has its own culture. And something that dynamic that is able to bring a group of people together in a culture in that sense, the message that can emanate from that to everyone else will be so impactful. I think there's still room. There's still room for so many people to come out of Seattle and just open it up. I love the fact that hip hop has went this far and that it's going to continue to go. I mean, we never thought that after cassettes that there would be anything else, and we can then go to CDs. Now nobody has CDs, now it's digital. So it's like we don't know what's next, you know. So what is the next thing? And I think that's what it is with rap. It's the same thing. The thing that I love about being a part of the hip hop community at this time is that I think it's because of the love that I receive from all the rappers that are out now. In 206 Zulu, they always make us feel, you know, like, hey, you know what, you guys aren't forgot about. To hear those type of things, it's like, man, that's awesome. You know, I'm blessed to be a part of hip hop history. I'm blessed for this.